Story 1. The spare key under his name. 3 a.m. apartment hallway. The spare key shone under the wrong doormat. It was 3:04 a.m. when I saw it again, the spare key glinting under the wrong doormat. I'd left it by mine before going to bed. The hallway light buzzed, sickly yellow. No footsteps, no doors closing. Just that small silver shape, turned a few inches east, as if guided by a hand that knew the weight of my door. I stood there barefoot, heart counting the seconds, convincing myself I'd misremembered. But memory doesn't hum like that. When he came over that morning, his shoulders brushed mine in the kitchen, almost by accident. His perfume was clean, freshly sprayed, too recent for dawn. The light from the window drew the outline of his mouth while he said he hadn't touched the spare key. I watched his hand hover near the counter, close enough to feel its warmth. The silence between us found its own timing, like something rehearsed before I woke. By the second night, the key had turned again, half a rotation, metal catching just enough light to wink at me. I took a photo this time. He looked at it later, frowning, shirt unbuttoned at the throat, saying maybe I'd kicked it by mistake. I reached out to fix his collar. My fingers grazed the warm fabric of his skin, only for a second, only enough to feel him tense. He smiled too quickly afterward. That kind of smile that hides a tremor. When he spoke, his voice came too close. Each word drifted against my ear, soft, measured, like he knew the exact distance where sound becomes breath. I felt the air stir the small hairs at my neck. He said he'd check the hallway camera for me, promised he'd make sure no one had the key. The promise landed hot, then cold. I kept hearing the last syllable long after he'd gone, as if it had settled inside the room and decided to stay. That evening, a new smell waited by the door, sweet, unfamiliar, faintly floral. Not his brand, not mine. I crouched to pick up the spare key. It was warm, almost humid, as if someone had held it too long. I told myself scents travel through vents, that buildings collect other people's air. But this one clung to my wrist when I closed the door. It felt personal. We had dinner later, both pretending nothing was wrong. Our knees touched under the table and didn't move apart. He laughed at something small, the sound low, almost private. For a second, the pressure of his leg against mine steadied me, made the fear shrink. Then I realized the perfume, that perfume, was on him now. I didn't ask how. Later that night, I found him sitting by the window, phone dark in his hand. A single strand of hair had fallen across his face. I reached to move it, slow enough to feel the static lift between us. The skin beneath my fingers tightened, goosebumps rising like tiny signals. He looked up, half smile, half question, and said nothing. Outside, the hallway light flickered once, as if listening. We didn't speak for a while. The room filled with our breathing, shallow and synced. Even the clock seemed to hold its sound. I could still taste the faint perfume, mixed with the metallic smell of the key I'd been turning in my hand. Something about the silence felt deliberate, like a rehearsal for whatever waited behind the door. Neither of us wanted to break it first. He sent me the camera clip the next day. The footage showed someone unlocking my door around 3 a.m., barefoot, hoodie up. The frame froze when the face turned toward the lens. Same height. Same walk. Even the small tilt of the head I do when listening. But the movement was too smooth, too sure. He swore it wasn't him. He didn't ask if I thought it was me. When he left that night, a faint heat stayed where his hand had brushed my arm. The smell lingered again, soft, insistent in the fabric of the couch. I tried to open a window, but the air refused to change. The key on the counter caught the city light, bright enough to sting. It looked freshly polished, though I hadn't touched it since morning. Maybe some things clean themselves after being held. I woke to the sound of keys against the lock. Not loud, careful, practiced. Someone outside breathed close to the door, just enough for the wood to answer with a tremor. I leaned forward, listening. Then a voice came, almost inside my ear, a whisper shaped like my name. The echo didn't match its timing. It came from behind me where no one stood. I'm inside now, lights off, the real key tight in my hand. Despair lies outside waiting for whichever version of him, or me, comes to claim it. The lock turns once. I can see the metal move, slow, deliberate, like a pulse beneath skin. Would you wait to see who walks in? Story 2. The scent that wouldn't fade. Early morning, the hotel mirror was fogged, and the perfume bottle was half empty. The mirror was still fogged when I woke up. Light from the blinds cut across the bathroom door, tracing the steam like fingerprints. On the counter, the perfume he said he was saving for clients. The cap was off and the level had dropped almost halfway. It didn't smell like him anymore. It smelled warmer, used. I stood there in the hotel robe trying to convince myself I'd spilled it somehow. He came back late again. Said the meeting ran long. When he leaned to kiss my shoulder, the scent hit before his lips did. Clean, recent, sharp like cold metal under heat. Our shoulders nearly touched as he brushed past me, the light drawing the outline of his mouth on the mirror. I asked if he'd been wearing it. He just smiled at the fog and said, "You'd notice if I was." Later, I helped him fix his collar before he left again. My fingers brushed the fabric, warm from his skin, smooth but too clean, like it hadn't been worn long. He didn't look at me while I straightened it, just adjusted his cuff and said something about room service. My hand stayed there a second too long, enough for him to feel it, or maybe enough for me to test if he'd pull away. He didn't. When he finally spoke, it was too close. His words slipped between my ear and the edge of my jaw, a breath disguised as a sentence. "Don't wait up," he murmured. The air between us thickened, perfume and silence, almost the same weight. By the time I turned, the door had already clicked. The echo stayed longer than it should have. Morning blurred into noon. The scent lingered on the pillow he hadn't used, faint but deliberate, like someone had rested there waiting. I tried changing the sheets. It only spread. Sweeter, heavier. The maid knocked once and handed me a bill folded too neatly. The hotel logo gleamed at the top. 1-room minibar charge, 2 glasses. I stared at it long enough for the numbers to blur. That night, I sat at the small table by the window. He joined me halfway through my drink. Our knees brushed beneath the linen, soft, unplanned, but neither of us moved. The contact hummed through the silence. His tie was loose, his hair damp as if he'd showered somewhere else. The perfume floated between us, that same metallic sweetness, unclaimed yet familiar. I asked what it was called. He said just something I tried on. A strand of his hair fell forward when he looked down. I reached to move it aside. The tips of my fingers brushed his temple. His skin tightened under the touch, goosebumps blooming where the light hit. He didn't flinch, just exhaled, slow, like he'd been holding that breath for someone else. For a second, I almost said her name, though I didn't know it yet. We stopped talking. The air turned soft and dense, filled only with the sound of the clock. His reflection in the window looked closer than the real him. I could hear both of us breathing, uneven, out of sync. The scent had thickened, clinging to the glass, the sheets, my throat. The room seemed to wait for one of us to confess, and neither did. He left early again. I waited for the door to close before lifting his pillow. The scent was there, fresh, stronger than before. It wasn't his anymore. It was layered, doubled, as if 2 people had worn it back to back. I pressed the fabric to my face until my eyes watered. Beneath the sweetness, there was a faint note of smoke, almost human, almost gone. When he returned, his jacket brushed my arm, leaving a faint warmth behind. I caught that same metallic sweetness on his sleeve, but heavier, almost wet. I asked where he'd been. He smiled too slowly and said, "Nowhere that matters." After he went to shower, I found the bottle on the nightstand again. A thin line of condensation clung to the glass, and when I touched it, it felt like someone had just set it down. The water stopped, but he didn't come out. Steam crawled from under the bathroom door, carrying that same perfume, denser now, almost breathing. Then came a knock. Not from inside. From the hallway. A woman's voice, low, steady, "You're wearing my scent." My throat locked. The bottle on the table trembled slightly as if caught between 2 pulses. I opened the door. The corridor was empty, except for another bottle on the carpet, identical, already open. My initials were carved on its silver neck, same as the one inside. The air smelled like every room I'd ever waited in. He called my name from the bathroom, soft, unsure. I turned back, both bottles catching the light. Would you still ask who it belongs to? Story 3. Scene typing. 11:42 p.m., blue glow from the phone, status reads active now. It was the only light left in the room. My boyfriend was asleep beside me, or pretending to be. I scrolled aimlessly until a notification blinked through the dark. Welcome back to Ember. I hadn't used that dating app in months. I deleted it the night we moved in together. Curiosity, or something meaner, made me tap it. The loading screen pulsed like a heartbeat. Warm air drifted between us. His shoulder almost brushed mine. My skin prickled where the sheet met my wrist as if the glow itself carried static. Then there it was, a familiar profile photo. His smile. The same one he'd given me the night we met. The status read active now. I adjusted the collar of his t-shirt, maybe just to check if he was really asleep. My fingers grazed warm fabric, too long to be an accident. The profile photo on the screen blinked again, this time with a green ring pulsing around it. A new match. My name appeared. My face. My own account, alive and waiting. A soft vibration ran through the mattress. He exhaled, slow, and turned toward me. The sound of his breathing filled the pause between us. I opened the chat window. Typing appeared at the top, followed by a message I never wrote. Still awake? It felt like the words were whispered directly into my ear, hot and careful. I should have closed the app, deleted it again. Instead, I watched the typing dots pulse and fade like breath. A new message appeared, nice photo. Then another. You always look best in low light. My own selfies filled the chat, ones I didn't remember taking. In each, the reflection behind me was wrong. Taller. Closer. The mattress dipped slightly. His knee found mine under the blanket and didn't move. My thumb hovered over the phone, cold and slick with sweat. Another message arrived before I could react. Don't look away. The room thickened with heat, the hum of the charger turning sharp. For a second, I thought I heard his voice come from the speaker. A strand of his hair fell forward as he shifted. I reached out, brushing it back from his face. The movement was small, careful. The kind you do when you're not sure if you're allowed. His skin shivered under my fingertips. The phone vibrated again once, then stopped. The screen had gone dark, but I could still feel it staring. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It breathed. Every inhale I took came back to me slightly delayed, like someone syncing up to my rhythm. The air was warm and damp, heavy with the scent of his cologne and something sweeter, like static before rain. I didn't dare move. The app was open again, all on its own, and my profile started typing. Each letter appeared one by one, slow enough to make my chest tighten. Look behind you. I froze. The blue light painted our faces, identical in shade. I wanted to believe it was a glitch, that my phone had learned a new trick. But then his screen lit up too, echoing the same message. He was still turned away, breathing evenly. Too evenly. When I finally touched his shoulder, the heat lingered on my hand. He didn't stir. Another ping. Both phones this time. The scent of his skin clung to the sheets, clean and raw. My own name flashed again, followed by one more line. You left the camera on. I looked down. The front lens was open, showing us both, though neither of us had moved. He leaned closer before I could speak, his breath brushing my ear. A murmur, too low, too close, spelled what the next message would say. The glow from both screens pulsed against the wall, outlining our faces in the same light. I swear I heard typing that didn't come from either of us. A rhythm syncing to the sound of our breathing. Then both phones chimed at once. Same thread. Same words. Would you check the message or delete it first? I didn't move. The reflection on his screen smiled a moment too long, like it knew my answer. The room hummed with static and the faint scent of his perfume refusing to fade. Story 4. The room next door. 1 a.m. music fading, one locked door keeps vibrating with laughter. The party had thinned by 1 a.m. music fading, perfume dissolving into the carpet. I'd stepped out for air, but even in the hallway laughter still pulsed through the walls. Not random, not drunk, but familiar. My boyfriend's kind of laugh. The sound came from the locked room next to mine, soft at first, then swelling like it knew my name. I told myself it was nothing, just an echo caught in the plaster, yet I didn't move away. When I turned, the door shimmered with low light from the pool outside. I caught a shadow of someone's shoulder through the gap beneath. My own reflection leaned toward it. The air smelled like fresh linen and something sharper. His cologne recently passed. My arm brushed the wall as I listened. The surface was warm, almost alive. The light traced the outline of a mouth across the paint, and for a second I thought it was smiling back. Someone passed behind me, laughing toward the stairs, and I almost called his name. But the voice died in my throat. His jacket, gray, the one from the rooftop bar, hung by the handle of the locked room. I reached out without thinking, straightened the collar. The fabric was still warm, brushed with the scent of skin and smoke. My fingers lingered just long enough to feel the pulse of leftover heat, as if the jacket remembered who had worn it. Then a whisper, close, too close. Not from the hall, but from the crack of the door. A woman's voice, low and laughing, stopped mid-word. The last syllable seemed to land against my ear, warm and deliberate. I stepped back, but the air stayed charged, like breath waiting to finish the sentence. For a moment, I could swear the wall inhaled with me. I went back to the lounge, pretending nothing had happened. The others were scattered, faces half lit by dying candles, voices soft and blurred. My phone buzzed with a message from him. "Where'd you go?" The timestamp said 10 minutes ago. I typed a reply but didn't send it. From my seat, I could still hear faint laughter through the wall. It sounded smaller now, like something trapped inside the room, still pretending to have fun. When I sat down, someone joined me at the table. I didn't look right away. The chair creaked, and a hand brushed mine while reaching for a glass. The touch was light, unsure. Then under the table, a knee met my own, and didn't move. The air tightened between us, the music slowing to a hum. I told myself it was an accident, but the stillness disagreed. When I finally looked, it was her, the host's friend, pale in the candlelight, watching me instead of the drink she held. A curl had fallen across her face, and before I could think, I reached out and brushed it aside. The skin beneath my fingers rose in tiny tremors, as if asking to be touched again. She smiled, too calm, and said nothing. Behind her, the hallway waited, listening. We stayed there, not talking. The laughter from the locked room had stopped. Only the low music and our breathing filled the space, folding together until I couldn't tell which belonged to me. The walls seemed to lean closer, curious. A shadow crossed the ceiling and vanished near the door. She glanced toward it, then back at me, and smiled again, slower this time. A thud broke the quiet. The locked door rattled once, then stilled. Someone laughed again, but it was faint, muffled, almost mechanical. She turned toward the sound, but her expression didn't change. I stood, my pulse a quiet drum under the music, and stepped closer to the hallway. Light blinked from under the door, white and sharp, like a phone camera catching motion in the dark. When I glanced back, she was gone. Only her glass remained, a thin print of color on the rim. The air still held her perfume, warm, citrus and static, mixed with his cologne. I touched my wrist and found heat there, the ghost of contact that shouldn't have lingered. From behind the door came a single, short breath, like someone realizing they'd been seen. I leaned closer to the lock, meaning to listen just once. The door vibrated softly under my palm. Then a voice slipped through the keyhole, almost a laugh, almost my name. It came so near my ear that I felt the warmth bloom against my neck. I turned fast, expecting someone behind me. No one. Only the mirror on the opposite wall, showing two shadows where there should have been one. Later in my room, I watched the clip I'd recorded without meaning to. The hallway, the door, the flash of light. Then, an extra figure between us, its hand wearing his ring. I froze the frame. The pixels trembled, then began to vanish. The file erased itself before the image could finish breathing. The air smelled like him again, fresh and close. Would you knock, or pretend you didn't hear? Story 5. Exit 43. 2:15 a.m., deserted highway exit, familiar license plate in the dark. It was 2:15 a.m. when I saw the license plate. Same numbers. Same dent under the taillight. My boyfriend's car, pulled over just before exit 43. No hazard lights. No movement inside. The highway was empty except for me and the hiss of the rain. I slowed, telling myself he must have hit a flat or stopped for a call, but the longer I stared, the less it looked like help was what he needed. I eased my car to the shoulder a few yards back. The air between us was pale with fog, headlights slicing through it like a breath caught midway. For a second, I thought I saw someone in the driver's seat, shoulders shifting. My fingers brushed the steering wheel, the leather damp and cold, and I felt that small charge in the chest you get before touching someone you shouldn't. His perfume still lingered in my jacket. It rose with the heat of my breath and made the silence heavier. I got out, leaving the engine idling. The rain had thinned to a mist that clung to everything. When I reached his car, the windows were fogged from the inside, soft shapes moving behind the glass. I leaned close, wiped a small circle clear with my sleeve. Nothing. Just the reflection of my own eyes and the faint glow of his dashcam blinking red. I adjusted my collar, nerves pulling at the fabric. The warmth of my skin met the cool damp cloth like two strangers pretending to know each other. Then voices, muffled low from the car. One of them sounded like him. The other, like me. I froze, ear almost against the glass. The words were indistinct, something about waiting. My breath fogged the window again, and in that small patch of warmth I saw the vague shape of a mouth, inches from mine, speaking where no one should have been. The glass trembled once as if it had exhaled. I backed away, glancing at the dashcam light. It was still recording, steady and red. I pressed my phone's flashlight to the side window, trying to pierce the blur, but the beam only bounced back. The interior looked damp, like breath had soaked the glass from every angle. No figures now. No movement. Just the rhythmic click of cooling metal and the faint hum of my own engine behind me. I told myself to leave, to call him later, to stop imagining voices in fog. When I turned toward my car, the driver's door was open. I hadn't left it that way. Rain pooled on the seat and the smell of wet leather hit me hard. I climbed in, trying to shake it off, and felt a light pressure against my knee. Someone else's knee. I jerked, but the touch didn't move. Just a steady, unhurried weight. The air felt close, heavy. I whispered his name, but the only reply was the soft mechanical whir of the dashcam starting a new file. I turned slowly, expecting him. The seat beside me was empty, only the indentation in the leather, fresh and warm. My pulse thudded in my ears. A strand of hair clung to my sleeve. I brushed it away, but my fingers hesitated, caught by the faint static of skin memory. For an instant, I swore I could feel his breath where it had been, close, deliberate. The kind of closeness that leaves the air tasting different. The rain had stopped. The world outside the windshield felt sealed, soundless. I sat there, not breathing much, while the dashcam blinked like a heartbeat between us. Each click of the relay echoed too loudly. The fog on the glass had begun to clear in patches, and the emptiness behind it was worse than seeing a face. I stayed still, waiting for something, anything, to choose what happened next. The dashcam's playback screen flickered. For a second I saw movement, not from outside but from the rear seat. A shape leaned forward, too dark to define, and whispered something close to the mic. The sound fed through the cabin speakers, soft and broken. Said my name. I reached for the cord to shut it off, but my hand shook so badly that I dropped it. The audio looped, my own voice answering back, a perfect copy saying, "Wait." The windshield fogged again, fast this time, like someone breathing from the inside. I stared, paralyzed, as a single handprint bloomed on the glass, fingers spread, pressing out toward me. I could see the smudge of skin oils, the faint tremor in the wrist before it faded. When I looked down, warmth lingered on my own palm as if I'd been the one inside. The smell of his perfume filled the car again, too strong, too recent. I leaned closer to the dash cam, drawn by the faint hiss under the static. A voice formed again, mine unmistakably. "Please, open the trunk." The sound came from both the speakers and somewhere just behind my ear. Warm breath brushed the side of my neck, too human to ignore. I turned fast, but the seat was empty. The lens of the dash cam faced me now, its reflection pulsing in the windshield, recording every shallow breath I took. Headlights bloomed in the rearview mirror, same make, same color, same dent under the taillight. My own car idling where his had been. The dashcam light blinked once and died, leaving me with my reflection and the faint scent that shouldn't have survived the rain. I gripped the wheel, heart slamming against a silence that waited for an answer. Would you stop, or keep driving?